Tom Parker Bowles is the son of Prince Charles's girlfriend. He's also a close friend of Prince William, and, allegations that he's been taking drugs. On a quiet evening at St. James's Palace, a routine check turned into chaos. A royal car showed up, trunk strangely heavy, license plates not recognized. When a guard opened it, Camilla's son was inside, pale and tense, holding a sealed box of documents. Rumors spread across the palace. Phones were buzzing and security rushed around. Within moments, Prince William showed up, his presence commanding attention. So, what exactly did he do next? And why did it shock everyone in the palace? They caught Camilla's son trying to flee the UK, behind the high stone walls of Clarence House. Royal routines usually happened with quiet precision. But on this day, the calm didn't last. The Queen Consort's son, Tom Parker Bowles, wasn't supposed to draw attention. For years, he had managed to stay out of royal politics, focusing on his career as a respected food critic and author. Yet that morning, his name was on every whispering lip across the palace and later across Britain for all the wrong reasons. Tom had always been known for avoiding royal drama, while his mother, Queen Camilla, carried the weight of royal duty. He carved a quieter path, far from the spotlight. He had never been a working royal, and Camilla often went to great lengths to protect her children from palace intrusion. But even royal privacy has its limits. That boundary was tested when palace guards caught something unusual, something that would send ripples through Buckingham Palace and beyond. According to palace aides, the day started like any other. Camilla was in her small drawing room, reviewing papers and sipping her morning tea. She often called her children. Brief, affectionate chats that kept her grounded amid the royal whirlwind. But this time, Tom didn't call. He simply showed up unannounced a few hours before her scheduled meeting. Witnesses say he looked hurried, distracted, not quite his usual calm self. His black vehicle passed through the private entrance, cleared by security as usual. Yet something about it caught the attention of Sergeant Whitmore, a seasoned palace guard known for his quiet watchfulness. The car was unfamiliar, different from Tom's usual one, and its trunk, he later recalled, seemed oddly weighted. At first, it looked like routine business. But within minutes, curiosity turned to concern. While Camilla and Tom chatted warmly inside about his new cookbook and a recent trip to Paris, guards outside exchanged uneasy glances. The car didn't match clearance records. Protocol demanded a second inspection. Not even the Queen Consort's son was exempt. Whitmore quietly radioed for backup. The courtyard, usually calm and orderly, began to hum with tension. Two guards approached the car and ran a quiet scan. They didn't expect to find anything suspicious, but when one of them lifted the trunk slightly, he froze. Inside was a large metal case locked tight with a combination lock. It looked heavy. Too heavy for a man supposedly carrying only papers. "Sir, the guard needs you by the car," Whitmore said firmly as he entered the room. Tom looked up, startled. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his voice unsteady. Camilla frowned. She wasn't used to her family being questioned by palace staff. Still, were rules. She nodded for him to go. Outside, the scene grew tense. "Just a standard check, sir," Whitmore explained, though his tone carried an edge. "That trunk looks heavier than usual." Tom frowned. "It's nothing. Private items, manuscripts, notes, a few personal effects," but the guards weren't convinced. Locked containers required inspection under palace protocol, especially after recent security warnings. When the trunk was opened, the air changed instantly. Inside sat the metal box, dented, scratched, clearly traveled. No one knew what was inside, but its secrecy spoke volumes. "We'll need to take a look, sir," Whitmore said again. Tom hesitated, visibly irritated. "You don't need to open that. It's personal." Extremely personal. By then, Camilla had stepped outside, drawn by the growing noise. Her expression was a mix of confusion and disbelief. "What on earth is going on?" she asked sharply. Whitmore bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, we found a locked case in the vehicle. It requires inspection." The courtyard fell silent. Even the staff nearby stopped pretending not to listen. Before anyone could respond, another car rolled through the gate, this time Prince William's. He stepped out quickly, his face unreadable as he glanced from Tom to the guards, then to Camilla. The timing could not have been worse. To onlookers, it appeared as though the Queen Consort's son had been caught in some secret act, and William's sudden arrival only deepened the mystery. Within hours, rumors swirled online and across the press. Was Tom trying to smuggle something out of the country? Was he fleeing amid a quiet dispute inside the palace? No one could confirm, and Buckingham Palace offered no comment. Only that a routine inspection was conducted. Still, one question refused to fade. What was in that box? Heavy enough to raise suspicion, secret enough to make the Queen Consort intervene, and serious enough to silence the palace afterward. Whatever the truth, that morning it turned into a royal storm. And this time, it wasn't the crown making headlines. It was Camilla's son. Let's dive into the details of how that mysterious box, a locked trunk, and one man's panic unraveled into a royal scandal no one saw coming. The day William stopped Camilla's son from fleeing the UK, no one in the royal household saw it coming. A quiet afternoon at Windsor turned into a storm that would leave the palace whispering for weeks. It started with something as ordinary as a car. A sleek black sedan parked at the edge of the royal estate, engine running, trunk locked, and one very nervous man behind the wheel. Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla's son. He looked ready to disappear, as though the wind itself might carry him out of Britain before anyone noticed. But someone did notice, and that someone was Prince William. Reports suggest William hadn't come looking for trouble. He was visiting to discuss a family event, perhaps to ease the tension between his stepmother and the rest of the firm. But the moment he arrived, he noticed guards grouped around Tom's car, their uneasy expressions showing that something wasn't right. Within seconds, William's calm but authoritative voice cut through the silence. "What's going on here?" The guards explained that Tom had been stopped from leaving after inconsistencies appeared in his travel records. His car, unusually heavy, carried a locked trunk that raised suspicion. Tom claimed it was kitchen equipment, but his defensiveness only deepened the doubt. William listened quietly, observing Tom's unease and the guard's discomfort. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It was an issue of royal protocol. Moments later, Camilla arrived visibly displeased to find her son at the center of royal scrutiny. She didn't hide her irritation that William had stepped in. But he wasn't acting as a stepson. He was acting as the future king. Calmly but firmly, he requested the key. Tom hesitated, jaw tight, caught between fear and pride. But on royal grounds, defiance wasn't an option. William's tone left no room for debate. Reluctantly, Tom handed over the small silver key, his hand trembling slightly. The trunk creaked open. Inside were not kitchen tools, but stacks of handwritten pages wrapped in tissue. A few leather-bound journals, and at the bottom, 2 sealed envelopes marked by a familiar hand. William's breath caught. It was his mother's handwriting, Princess Diana's. For a moment, time seemed to stop. These were private letters believed to have been sealed in royal archives since her death. No one outside the institution had seen them in decades. How then had they ended up in the trunk of the Queen Consort's son? Tom's face was drained of color. He said nothing, eyes fixed on the ground. The guards stood frozen. Camilla's expression remained controlled, too controlled. And that made William's stomach tighten. These weren't just old papers. They were fragments of Diana's voice, her thoughts, her grief. Seeing them here on the verge of being taken from the country felt like a violation. William closed the trunk slowly, every motion deliberate. The discovery had changed everything. If his mother's letters could disappear so easily, what else might have been taken from the royal vaults? And who had allowed it? He told the guards to secure the trunk immediately. No photos, no copies, no discussion. it would be transported directly to his private office for review. The guards obeyed at once, lifting the heavy case into his vehicle. Tom stood motionless, his silence now heavier than any confession. Whether he had acted alone or under someone's instruction, no one could say, but the damage was already done. As William's car door shut, it didn't sound like an ending. It sounded like the beginning of something far more dangerous. A reckoning buried beneath royal silence. The palace refused to comment, but the whispers never stopped. What else had gone missing? Who gave permission? And most haunting of all, why was Tom Parker Bowles of all people trying to flee the UK with pieces of Princess Diana's private legacy? Whatever the truth, one thing became certain that day. Some secrets within royal walls will never stay buried forever. Let's dive into the details of what William found inside that trunk. A discovery so shocking it could shatter everything the palace fought to keep buried. The trunk, the betrayal, and a royal reckoning. Late at Kensington Palace, William locked himself in a private room and placed a heavy trunk into a safe. He dismissed the staff, needing to be alone. As he pried open the lid, he pulled back at what met him. The documents inside whispered of 1995. Letters where Diana spoke of being followed by strangers, of tapped calls and nights spent alone in tears. She confessed, feeling pushed aside in her own marriage, Camilla's presence casting a shadow on her union with Charles. Deeper in the pile, William dug up a diary entry from months before Diana's death. It chilled him. In those pages, she named meetings that had no official record, hinted at dangers, and wrote this chilling warning. If anything happens to me, it will not be an accident. The weight of those words forced him to lean back. These were not letters meant for public eyes. They were desperate warnings meant to stay hidden until now. Meanwhile, Tom sat at home, restless, replaying the day's events again and again. The courtyard confrontation had shaken him more than he'd admit. With Camilla's instincts alive, she sensed a shift. William's digging could expose things she preferred buried. And if he learned how the letters and diaries slipped from vaults to Tom's possession, he traced the leak inside the palace, that would spark a scandal no one could contain. William could not shake the suspicion. Someone within those ancient walls had stolen from Diana's legacy. The safe, the stolen pages. This was no small theft. It exposed secrets too powerful to ignore. In the cold quiet of the room. As darkness fell, William lay awake. The trunk had unlocked not just documents, but a new front in a battle for truth. Before dawn, William's lamp still burned. He pored over the letters and diaries, each page layering his burden a little heavier. When the first morning light crept into the palace, he sealed the safe and moved to the room where aides waited. Though the public was unaware, whispers had already spread across Kensington, Clarence House, and Buckingham. Gossip seated itself where silence once stood. At 8 a.m., William called Sir Clive Alderton, the late King's secretary. He explained that the stolen letters were royal property and demanded they be treated as such. Clive asked whether William wanted a discreet fix or a public resolution. He chose both. A cover-up would breed suspicion. Total exposure could devastate the monarchy. By mid-morning, a small elite team gathered. Palace lawyers, archivists, and trusted aides. They picked apart legal risks and reputational fallout. William called his father King Charles, preparing for a public engagement. Charles listened carefully but offered no blueprint, only counsel. Act decisively, but protect the crown's dignity. As the crisis likewise reached Camilla, she huddled with her private secretary. She urged Tom to stay silent, to say nothing. Inside William's newly formed team, the debate raged. Call the police or keep internal control. He rejected both extremes. Too much secrecy had sabotaged institutions before. Too much exposure could destroy family bonds. Tom was brought in for questioning by royal legal staff, not the police. He confessed owning the trunk, but wouldn't reveal how the documents left their vaults. His vague answer stirred more alarm than clarity. By evening, the official report lay open on William's desk, and then Kate entered. She asked what he would do. He replied softly. Ignoring this would harm the crown. Pushing too hard would wound his family. Reporters were sniffing. Words would not stay contained. The palace shifted into crisis mode, drafting statements, strengthening security around Kensington, and sealing off leaks. Days later, Camilla met with Charles over dinner. She voiced frustration and fear. William now faced three dangerous paths: bury the scandal, expose Tom fully, or reveal some parts to balance transparency. Each choice carried consequences. To hide would invite suspicion. To expose would break trust. To partially disclose might save face, but fuel doubt. The pressure mounted. William knew one thing. This was no longer a matter of cracks in the facade. The trunk had set in motion a reckoning that even Camilla, queen consort, could not escape. And so the stage was set. The palace, once a seat of quiet tradition, now stood at the center of a growing storm. The stolen letters, the betrayal, the questions all pointed to one truth: that in the place built to protect legacy, someone had chosen to steal it instead. Let's dive into the tension that followed, where stolen secrets shook royal trust and the echoes of deceit began to challenge the very traditions holding the monarchy together. Secrets on the move. The hush inside St. James's Palace suddenly felt heavier than ever. But to grasp why, you have to see past the marble halls and gold frames. The monarchy's weight now balances on tradition and whispers. Two forces at odds in the aftermath of Queen Elizabeth II's passing. Her reign was built as much on preservation as on ceremony. Every gem, letter, and heirloom was catalogued, guarded, rotated between Windsor, St. James's, and Balmoral, so nothing ever sat too long in one place, and anything unusual would raise alarms. When the Queen died, she left behind more than a crown. She left the system. The Royal Collection Trust and the Royal Archives became its keepers, ensuring that nothing considered crown property slipped into private hands. Elizabeth had even left handwritten notes about specific items like this cross belongs to the crown, not inheritance. Instructions meant to survive time. One archivist once revealed that if anything moved outside regular rotation through the heritage hold system, an investigation would follow immediately. Trust in that world is fragile. Against this foundation, Camilla's role has always been shaky. Though crowned queen consort alongside Charles, she never shook the glare of public scrutiny. Approval polls frequently trailed behind those of Catherine and William. And rumors went around about borrowed jewelry, unapproved loans of brooches, and private dinners using crown pieces. None of it proven, none of it openly confronted, but together they built doubt around her respect for the Queen's boundaries. So when Sergeant Miles Ashdown flagged Tom Parker Bowles's car at the Balmoral gate, and when Camilla's name hovered in connection, the stakes multiplied. The monarchy, still raw from losing its longest-serving monarch, is desperate to avoid even the faintest hint that Elizabeth's treasures are vanishing. Because to the public, inventory mistakes look like betrayal. Inside, the officials scrambled. Archivists rechecked logs. Guards re-examined protocols. Has someone gotten around the heritage rules? Had Camilla's circle overstepped? Could a quiet shift in custody become an explosive scandal? The questions multiplied, and the balance teetered between duty and secrecy. Yet, this was more than a palace drama. It was a clash between the institution's strict traditions and the pressures of power behind the scenes. The monarchy had never just survived by pomp. It required trust. And if one crumb of doubt lands on that faith, the entire structure shakes. Camilla's shadow had grown long in the decades since Elizabeth's reign. A misstep now, a rumor given legs, could redefine her place. So with that sealed container, the story wasn't about a trunk. It was about legacy, reputation, and the tension between what belongs to history and what someone might hope slips quietly into the private domain. A monarchy built on centuries of stability now finds itself faced by one sealed moment that could shatter that illusion. The royal halls may always appear calm, but sometimes the most dangerous storms arrive quietly. Inside locked trunks and whispered archives. And in the hallways of St. James's, loyalty and suspicion both walk side by side. Let's dive into the moments that followed. When quiet glances replaced words and the weight of hidden truths began to shift behind Clarence House's closed doors. Shadows over Clarence House. The late afternoon light spilled through the tall windows of Clarence House, turning the polished floor into a mirror of uneasy reflections. Tension hung so thick that even the ticking clock seemed hesitant to move. Those gathered, Charles, Camilla, Anne, and William, sat around the long oak table. But what lay between them mattered far more than words. A velvet-lined container recovered under extraordinary circumstances seemed to pulse with its own quiet defiance. Inside, it was whispered, were fragments of the late Queen's private legacy. Letters, insignia, and documents never meant to leave royal custody. Though Charles had called the meeting to restore calm, the opposite unfolded. He had hoped to draw the family together, to stop the whispers spilling beyond palace walls. But by the time the meeting began, the story had already leaked and London was buzzing with speculation. Reporters camped near the mall, social media flooded with rumors. Had the Queen's private writings been removed without permission? And by whom? Camilla, visibly shaken yet defiant, was the first to speak. Her voice, sharp and brittle, cut through the stillness. She insisted that Elizabeth herself had confided in her that certain items were given for safekeeping, not for hiding. To her, this was loyalty, not deceit. But across the table, Anne's steady gaze never wavered. "Mother never left such matters to chance," she said quietly. "Every syllable, deliberate. Everything was written, sealed, and logged. A promise whispered in private does not outweigh a duty sworn in public." William's patience broke soon after. His voice, calm but burning with restrained fury, echoed in the high-ceiling room. "Those were my grandmother's memories. Part of our nation's story, not family property to be tucked away in the trunk of a car." His words drew a sharp glare from Camilla, who accused him of hypocrisy, pointing to the jewels Catherine often wore. "So Diana's heirlooms displayed for sympathy are sacred, but what I was given in confidence is forbidden," she snapped. William's fist hit the table. Because those jewels were given, not taken. The sound hung in the air like a verdict. Charles tried to intervene, but the weight of his dual identity as king and husband pulled him in two directions. His voice faltered as he reminded them that the monarchy's survival depended on trust, not sentiment. Yet, when his eyes fell on the container, on the proof of what had happened, something shifted in him. He had defended Camilla through storms far worse than this. But even he could see this scandal was different. This wasn't just a family dispute. It was a test of the crown itself. When he finally spoke again, his voice carried a quiet finality. "From this day forward," he declared, "you will step back from all ceremonial duties. The royal collection is not ours to divide. It belongs to history." The words hit like thunder. Camilla's face was drained of color. "You cannot strip me of what is mine," she hissed, rising abruptly. "I am your queen." Charles's reply was steady, almost sad. "You are my wife," he said, "but the crown is larger than us both, and I must protect it, even from you." The door slammed behind her, and silence filled the room once more. Anne's expression was serious. William's eyes fixed on his father. For a long moment, Charles remained seated, staring at the container as if it might speak. Outside, the world waited, hungry for truth and scandal alike. Inside, the monarchy faced a reckoning that no one, not even the king himself, could stop. The whispers had already escaped the palace walls. And though the confrontation had ended, the real storm was only just beginning. Let's dive into the turning point where royal secrets burst into the open. And the line between palace whispers and public scandal vanished overnight. The trunk that shook the crown. The hush that followed the slamming door of Clarence's house was short-lived. Before the echo faded, whispers had already found wings, and by morning, the scandal had spilled into every corner of Britain's media. Headlines screamed of betrayal and ambition. King Charles throws out Camilla after she claims the late Queen's fortune for herself. Whether true or not, the damage was done. Overnight, what began as a private dispute turned into a global storm, pulling the royal family into a whirlpool of speculation and suspicion. The first photos that surfaced told their own story. Camilla, head bowed, hidden behind dark glasses. Being driven away from Mill House, the tabloids pounced, branding her the exiled queen. In living rooms and cafes, people debated. Had she really crossed a line, or was she being sacrificed to protect the monarchy's image? Charles's silence did little to ease the growing tension. When he finally spoke of duty before all else, his words rang hollow to many, and the public mood began to shift. Yet, amid the chaos, one voice cut through the noise. Prince William's. His sharp remark during a heated confrontation, reportedly telling Camilla, "My mother's memory is ours to guard, not yours to exploit," was leaked and replayed endlessly. Whether intentional or not, it cast him as the moral heir to his late grandmother's legacy. Polls soon followed. William's approval ratings surged with the British public rallying behind him and Catherine as symbols of stability and continuity. Even Princess Anne, long respected for her unfiltered honesty, found herself hailed online as the enforcer, the last defense of royal integrity. Still, questions lingered about the mysterious trunk that started it all. Sources close to the palace whispered about sealed letters, hospital notes, and old photographs linked to Princess Diana. Nothing was confirmed, but speculation ran wild. Was someone trying to reshape the story of her final days? And if one container could ignite such chaos, what secrets might lie hidden in those still sealed at Balmoral and Sandringham? Across the Commonwealth, the effects were huge. In Australia and Canada, renewed calls for Republican referendums filled the airwaves. American late-night shows mocked the saga as Britain's longest-running soap opera. Even French newspapers compared Charles to a king of another age, trapped between loyalty and indecision. By month's end, the fallout was undeniable. Camilla's approval ratings plunged to historic lows, while William, Catherine, and Anne emerged stronger than ever. Yet beneath the noise and memes, the real issue wasn't scandal. It was trust. Queen Elizabeth had built hers on service and discretion. Now those foundations trembled. The monarchy had survived wars, divorces, and abdications. But this was different because when truth becomes a matter of debate, even a crown can lose its shine. And as for the man who set the chain in motion, a quiet royal guard named Sergeant Miles Ashdown. He may never appear in history books, but by simply doing his duty. He reminded the world that sometimes it isn't royalty who protect the truth, but ordinary people who refuse to look the other way. The storm, it seems, was only the beginning.